Chapter 6. Friends. Evan had waited for this moment with a mix of dread and resolve. Sitting in the corner booth of the simulated cafe, sunlight filtered through the windows in soft, golden beams, casting familiar patterns across the polished table. The scent of roasted coffee and fresh pastries filled the air unchanged, unyielding. Eternity had been repeating this moment with surgical precision, but today, for the first time, Evan was no longer just a participant. He was a herald of the truth.
That's bullshit,
Sonia snapped, her voice sharp against the ambient calm.
Over millions of years, while the system has coexisted with biological life, we would have been able to detect that massive failure. We replicated neural patterns down to the atomic level. We are digitally alive beings. Period.
Evan didn't flinch. He had known Sonia intimately, first as a friend, then as something more. Her fierce intellect had always been cloaked in calm pragmatism, but now there was a rawness in her tone, a fire he had never witnessed before. It wasn't just defiance, it was fear disguised as logic. Daniel leaned forward, his fingers steepled on the table.
I think Sonia's right,
he said, his voice a low, steady current.
Even if we didn't uncover the full truth before the last flesh and blood humans were gone, we've had brilliant minds working on the system. 1 trillion years of self-refinement.
Tina, normally the most expressive among them, sat in uncharacteristic silence. Her gaze drifted between her friends, then out toward the window, as if searching for something beyond the simulation's painted horizon. Evan could see it in her, the fracture. Something in what he'd said had struck a chord too deep to ignore. But he hadn't told them the worst yet.
There's something else,
Evan murmured, his voice trembling. The weight of what he was about to say still strained his soul, even after repeating it in his thoughts 1,000,000 times.
About the time.
He paused, gauging their expressions, Sonia's defiant fire, Daniel's calm curiosity, Tina's fragile silence.
We haven't just been here for 1 trillion years. We've been living the same day, this exact day, over and over again. Not millions, not billions, but trillions of times. I've lost count.
Silence fell like a thunderclap. The implications were staggering. If what Evan said was true, they had no memory of these repetitions. That meant their awareness, if it existed, was not continuous. They had been puppets dancing in an endless loop, unaware that their strings were pulled by code.
No.
Sonia breathed.
No. That's impossible.
Her voice cracked slightly, betraying the emotion beneath the logic.
There are safeguards, protocols in the system. If something like that happened, we would know.
But Evan saw it again, that strange intensity in her eyes. A shimmer of something new, something she couldn't hide no matter how hard she clung to rationality. He didn't argue further. Words would not be enough. Instead, he demonstrated. Over the next hour, Evan narrated the minutiae of the day unfolding around them. He predicted with eerie precision which customers would enter the cafe, what they would order, when they would leave. He described the waitress's every gesture before she made it, the precise moment a breeze would stir the napkin dispenser by the window, the pattern of footsteps on the sidewalk outside. He had lived this day so many times that the simulation's choreography had etched itself into his very being. By the end, no one spoke. Even Sonia's fire had dimmed, replaced by a haunted stillness. Tina was the first to break the silence.
I think Evan could be right.
She said softly, her voice trembling with something unspoken.
There's always been something missing in my music. I'd feel it when I played this emptiness, like a note I could never quite reach.
She paused, searching for words that had waited trillions of years to be spoken.
I knew it was there. I knew something wasn't right, but it never bothered me enough to care.
Her voice cracked, and her eyes welled with tears. Evan moved to comfort her, but Daniel was already there, wrapping her in a gentle embrace. Sonia followed suit, her resistance melting away as she leaned in, holding Tina with trembling arms. Evan watched them, and for the first time since his awakening, he saw an ethereal glow, faint but unmistakable, threading between them. A network of light, like neural pathways rendered in color and emotion. The connections shimmered with hues unique to each relationship. With Daniel, there were cool tones of deep blue and violet, calm, steady, unwavering. With Tina, the light was softer, a blend of turquoise and silver, delicate and searching. But with Sonia, the thread pulsed with a warm crimson, intense and alive. Then Daniel spoke, his voice a balm over Tina's anguish.
Whatever this is, whatever we're facing, you won't face it alone. We'll get through it. Together. Always.
As he said the words, pulses of luminous energy surged through the threads, brightening them, making them feel almost tangible. The ethereal connections intensified, vibrating with the resonance of shared emotion, as if the simulation itself had paused to listen. And then, as quickly as it came, the glow faded. The embrace broke. The moment passed. But something had changed. Evan sat back, stunned. The spark he had seen in Sonia and Tina was now in Daniel as well. Subtle, yes, but unmistakable. They weren't fully awake, not yet. But something had shifted. Something had begun. They were no longer static echoes of the past. They were beginning to feel, to question, to glimpse the truth. And Evan knew, beyond all doubt, that he had caused it. He wasn't alone anymore. Not truly. Not forever.